But I think that's another age-old question that we've always kind of asked about Celtic ever since, you know, the financial implosion at Rangers, is that they've always just been happy to be a wee bit ahead of Rangers. And I think the Celtic fans find that really quite difficult to deal with. They want to see the club trying to strive for more in Europe. Now, listen, they have done well in Europe this year, absolutely accept that. But I think from the fans' point of view, they want to see the club operating, not worrying about what Rangers are doing, because I think they're so far ahead of Rangers now on the park and financially that it will be years before Rangers catch up, if at all. So they've got to show a wee bit more ambition in Europe. That'd be the fans' point of view. What I would say though in defence of, you know, what you're saying there, Peter, is that actually Celtic have spent a lot of money. You know, the last 3 transfer windows, I think, they've broken their long-standing transfer record. So if you look at it, you've got Jota came in, then you had Engels and Ida. It's all been big money, and they've broken their record consistently over that period. So the board might say,
could I write that off against sales?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah. I mean, obviously the counterpoint is they've got all this money under the bed. You know, the fans want to see on the pitch.
Yeah.
But I think the Celtic board will rightly say we're not going to be held over a barrel for a striker when Jota's come in. Obviously, Maeda being suspended for the Bayern Munich match has caused an issue. But I think going forward, they're going to have Jota, they're going to have Maeda, they're going to have Kuhn, and they've got back up there as well. So I think Maeda will probably go central, Jota will go on the left, and the board will say what you're moaning about.
I think all the remit has been achieved here.
It has, but I've got, I mean, if you talked about concerns, my concern would be not getting somebody in for August. I really, you know, would say if you're getting a centre forward and get him in 6 months before you have to worry about the bigger concern I have is the way that the transfer policy is working. I don't see a strategy. Now, before, when Peter Lawwell was in charge and you had Mark Lawwell's son there and under Angie, for example, it was a clear strategy. Now, it attracted a lot of criticism because it was a bit hit and miss. But the strategy seemed to be, we'll buy young, when we're buying young, we're going to buy players that have represented their country under 23, and that's there's a bit of quality of them, and we'll get them for 10, 15 grand a week. And if they do really well, we either sell them or we bump their wages up.
Has that drastically changed for you?
I think absolutely, yeah.
Where?
Well, I mean,
Jeffrey Sloop's 32.
That's what I'm saying.
He's only a loan signing.
That's what I'm saying, but that's completely different from buying a 23-year-old under 20, you know, an under 23 Danish international. You're hiring a 32-year-old Premier League player. Now, there's good aspects to both, but it's not a strategy. If you're going for a centre forward, before, if you were working for the Fenway Group or you were working, you know, for Bournemouth or something like that, they would say, well, what we're looking for is a young striker that we can develop and sell on. And we're now willing to pay good money. We've now moved from the 2 million from O to 10, 11 million. But it's a bit scattergun if you're going for Wiesgarden, right, who fills that billet, and your backup is Iheanacho and Danny Ings.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, well, that has the sort of feel to me that you're just sort of plucking names out of a hat. You know, you're going in agents and saying, who have you got available?
Yeah. I thought the most obvious the deviation from that was actually last January, when Celtic brought in Ida. Now, they brought him in on the loan deal, but without a clause that said, if you do well, here's the buyout clause, we'll pay 4.5, we'll pay 5. And what it did, it left him wide open when it came to the summer, and it was very clear that they wanted to come to get him back in, and it had worked for them, that you're over a barrel because you're paying top dollar. That wouldn't have happened before. There would have been a clause in the contract. Absolutely. It would not have happened.
If there's anybody had any idea that Peter Lawwell was running a transfer business, that was the one.
Absolutely.
Imagine Lawwell saying to Norwich, right, we'll take your player, we'll pay his wages, we'll make him a better player, and then when we make him a better player, we'll pay the premium.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah, that was the first sign for me that there was a really significant deviation from the way that Celtic were working. But I also thought too, what was very notable about this window was that everyone knew Kyogo wanted to go in the summer. Everybody knew that Kyogo was keen to leave and go on. There was an increasing inevitability about him going in January. As Rodgers came out and said, you know, he's not been happy for some time. He wanted to go. He made it clear he wanted to go. So you've had 6 months to sit and say, We have to have a plan in place. You have to source another striker. Here's your 5 options. Go through them and get one of them.
That was the biggest surprise to me, because when I was listening to Brendan Rodgers over the weekend as the clock ticks, I thought he sounded pretty confident about getting one.
He sounded very confident for part on Sunday, yeah.
And I thought to myself,
it's in the bag.
I said, they've got somebody in the bag. It's just crossing it, just crossing the T's here.
Even went as far to say it will be a loan. That was more than likely that will be a loan now because of where we are. But it gave you the impression that they had somebody lined up.
What about the other deals? I mean, I know you obviously look at the transfer window and all the hype that used to be associated with it.
Yeah.
I've never associated that hype with Scotland. I've always looked at it as a as they call it, the Jim White yellow tie, trying to make things sound exciting in the English Premier League because they're vast amounts of money. Up here, I mean, we talk about it from a bygone era of basically being, maybe 12 o'clock, a late signing comes in, a Barry Ferguson, a Robbie Keane, a Craig Bellamy. But I mean, I just think
a long time since
that's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as part of we're trying to do a couple of wee different things with our coverage, and as part of deadline day, they had me looking at Sky Sports News for the duration of the day and doing a piece on it and what I kind of found and how I enjoyed it, and I didn't enjoy it at all. Let me just let you in the secret.
Did you have to watch it all day?
No, I could have dipped in and out, but I was unfortunate enough to catch guys like Jamie O'Hara and Jen Beattie was sitting next to him thinking, what have I done in a previous life to deserve this, And it was just, they're trying to make something out of nothing, It's like, it's just... The biggest drama of the day was Matthias Tell, if he was coming to Tottenham or if he wasn't. But it wasn't if he was coming or not, it was, is it going to be a loan or a loan with an option to buy? And that went on for like 12 hours and it was just, terrible. And then now and again you would get a wee snippet for Scotland. Oh, and by the way, Ross County have got such and such on loan from Harrogate Town. And you're like, oh, brilliant. Aye. So I think it's looking at lost its lustre a wee bit, I've got to say. And I don't know if it's just because it's a stressful time in our profession, obviously, and it's the most stressful day at the end of a stressful month. But
I think it's such a weird window because no one wants to allow players to go. There's always a domino effect, I think, in the window, even in the summer. But it's really notable in a short burst across a few weeks in January that clubs don't want to allow other players to leave without sourcing a replacement, and I think that's where Celtic get stung.
Yeah,
Danny Ings as well.
I think if they knew they were so desperate for a striker as well. I mean, the manager's out publicly saying it. Kyogo's done it. They know Celtic have got a lot of cash in the bank.
Yeah.
If they did want Chris Garden, for instance, they were going to have to pay top dollar for it. And
you don't have to. You don't have to let everybody know. What you have to do in the background is say, listen, he's going to be sold. We'll go and privately do our business, and phone and say, right, this is the guy we're going to sign. How much do you want? Here it is. Can we have a wee bit of banter on it? And then after that, Kyogo announced, and then other player comes in.
They could have done it months
without
ago.
having a circus.
I thought in my naivety,
That was the plan.
My Kieran Tierney delusion, that was my thoughts, and I thought they've got somebody in and they'll wait because Kyogo has been unhappy. I mean, it's like all these stories always unfold, and you get more detail. We're talking to people, and Kyogo's actually been unhappy, not just during the summer break, but before the end of last season. And so you're saying to yourself, well, and apparently, Brendan was comfortable with that. I mean, it wasn't as if he was going and saying, "Oh, please stay and don't go." I mean, he's been quite vocal about it in press conferences. I thought that was a quite a strong line in his press conference the other day when he was addressing. He actually faced up and addressed. Listen, fans might be saying blah 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 about Kyogo, but they don't know what I know.
So he'd highlighted that 3 or 4 weeks prior to it.
Yeah, but he was strong yesterday saying to the fans, no, okay, just wait a minute here. It wasn't as straightforward as you think.
Yeah.
I just look at it and say, what's got to happen is that the board and manager, the whole departments in there have got to be aligned and have a transfer. They have to have a fully functioning recruitment department because they're now getting into a stage of they're a big club. They're a club that's dealing in 10 million, 11 million transfers in, dealing in 25 million transfers out. This is This is serious stuff.
What I would say is that a name that's not really been mentioned in all this is Paul Tidsdale, who was brought in during the summer. Actually, it wasn't announced till a wee bit after, but he's been working there for ages.
Yeah.
I don't. If there's not a plan there, what is he doing? You know, this is the thing. And
Well, I don't believe that there is. I don't buy into. I'm disagreeing with you. I think there is a plan. I think there's a strategy. I think there's a plan that they go through, and I don't think it's deviated too much from the plans of previous windows. The only change is the person who's doing the deals. I think the difference this time around is Brendan's bought into it. Brendan has to buy into it. He's been brought back. He's been in the movie before, and he's just sitting saying, "I'm going to take my money. I've done the job.
Here's what I would say.
I've got the
Here's what I would say though.
Totally.
I think he's moved it up. I think he's bought into the theory. But what he wanted to do was move the kind of envelope. So he wanted it to go from the £3 million experiments to an £11 million sure thing, which he thought he was getting with Arnie Engels.
Yes.
So that's where he's tried to move the club. So there is that strategy still in place to get a player and develop him and
He's
move him
also
on.
he's
He
not
just wants
wanting
to bring it up to a different
launder
Can't help
dirty washing.
himself. He can't help himself to give a thinly veiled swipe. You can read between the lines on it, but believe me, the second time around, he's bought into it. He's got his money.
It seems more settled.
He only has. He would have absolutely gone tonto first time around on this. Now he's bought into the plan. He's well paid. What was the remit? Get to the knockout. There's the knockout. I want the striker. Didn't get him. Listen, there's no point in me actually having a go here because here's the strategy.
The only thing I would say is yesterday we were sitting listening to Brendan trying to talk up Johnny Kenny as being, you know, a suitable alternative for the Bayern Munich game.
Yeah.
A guy who, I've no noticed harm to Johnny Kenny. You know, he did well for Shamrock Rovers. He did well in the Europa League, Conference League this season. But come on, this is Celtic we're talking about playing Bayern Munich, and the only guy they've got on the bench that can actually play. If let's say Ida, I mean Rodgers said he's not going to wrap him in cotton wool, so he could play him tonight. He could play him. I don't know how he'll play him. I don't think he'll play him on Saturday against Wraith Rovers, but. You know, what if he gets injured? Johnny Kenny's going to lead the line for Celtic against Bayern Munich.
See, this is what I think about signing. Peter, you're saying he's buying into things, but Brendan's targets are completely at odds with what was Celtic's strategy. Completely at odds. Yeah. You just have to look at the guys he signed. He signs guys, and by the way, I'm not complaining about this. I'm just saying, Brendan basically wants an English Premier League player, right? He wants him at 24, 25. Like Ida falls into that. Kuhn falls into it. Schmeichel falls into it. Tierney falls into it. Engels falls into it. Schlupp falls in it. Iheanacho would have fell into it. Danny Ings went into it. The strategy before was by South Koreans, Japanese, Danes, whatever, Swedes,
from an unknown
Polish
market.
people.
Listen, Hugh, I get that. All I'm saying to you is they're so far ahead in the league. They've got a really good chance as favourites to win the cup. And his remit when he was brought back, get them to a knockout
Oh,
stage.
I agree with you on all that.
He's done it. There is no need to throw a strop. He professionally, because as a manager, you do want to try and take yourself onto that next level. You do want to. He cannot, because of the nature of the person he is, even although he's well paid and he knows he's reached the ceiling point with Celtic, there's no point in throwing a strop. No. There's no point. He can just do the odd wee thinly veiled, by the way, I can't resist. Here is my line. See if you can read between it. But the remit has been reached. Get them to a knockout. And if you get the players, you get the players. He's probably said to himself, my God, I've been in this movie before. I'm pissed off, but I'm not going to say anything now because it's out comes the narrative.
I think he's maybe experience has maybe given him that, you know. But
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
he tried to justify yesterday. We did obviously ask him. You must be quite, you know, put out by this because you've said publicly you want a striker. He didn't get it, and now you're getting in quite short-handed for a big game. But he was just saying, well, listen, my management style is I'm a motivator, and I can't come in here with a hump. Yeah. And it just transmits to other people.
I think
behind it.
I think there's little to be.
Sorry, Alison, I was just going to say, I do think under the surface, I think he is annoyed.
Yeah,
absolutely. But you know, no point. You know, and I wonder about the other. You mentioned, and I don't want to dwell too much on Celtic. I want to, kind of broaden the horizon on it. But you look at the other clubs and what they're trying to do. Who do you think is the best window in Scotland?
I think Aberdeen had an interesting window.
Yeah,
but time will tell if it was a good window or not. But yeah, I think they're the ones who I would look at and go, yeah, they could really bring players in that might have an impact there.
Yeah.